Thank you, Ziad, for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to address uh, this team audience over here, and especially you all. We've been interacting on and off, and especially when it comes to the overall trade of Pakistan, how it should be, and with serious concerns in areas which has been very vital for the last 8 months with us. I'm sure, it's not to just tell the whole industry what exactly the issues are. I'm sure like you people are very well aware. The question is basically how we address it. And that's the main concern. That's the concern which the industry would like to see. When it comes to commerce, we are at a very crucial position of making sure that whatever the prospects of Pakistan's trade and economics and exports are, we are the one platform which is seen very focusedly. Whereas the components which are very much the essentials and the ingredients to take Pakistan's economy and trade forward is not directly related to us. And there's a portion which Commerce Ministry definitely has in terms of its trade diplomacy, its accessing to the new markets, making sure Pakistan is very well placed in the global networking and all, and to some extent of 10 to 15% of the tariff lines and execution that we can carry. Rest is all with the infrastructural governance structure which Pakistan has. For instance, the cost of production, the energy pricing, the taxation mechanism, the capital, which should be very much there with the industry for further expansion and all, and many of the policies which the government should have, which should be very much sustainable. So what my main concern for the last 8-9 months has been, as a commerce minister, because I do feel it's a responsibility which I bear on my shoulders, where the industry, if it's affected, is going to affect the Ministry of Commerce a lot. And the voice has to be the Ministry of Commerce. And we, for the last 8 months, have been very vocal, not only making sure that we sensitize the government. I am with the government, the part of government, but at the same time, there are other stakeholders who make certain decisions which do affect the overall industry. So just to cut the story a little bit short, first of all, I think so. There are two responsibilities that we carry. One is in terms of the 80% of the government policies, decisions, power structure pricings, overall taxations, which is a key component. And on the other side, which we call it as our responsibility of what Ministry of Commerce should do. On our part, it has been a few sectors which are very important. I'd like to discuss basically what is a core responsibility of Ministry of Commerce. First, foremost is what kind of a place we are giving to the overall industry and what should be their growth within Pakistan and the growth which we want to see for them in different markets. So Pakistan has different FTAs, we have PTAs, we have some very bilateral engagements with companies, and at the same time we have our new markets which are emerging up. So identifying such markets, which should be fresh markets for Pakistani products and export surplus, and at the same time, markets where we are engaged already, what kind of a benefit we can take, whether it's the European Union side, the US side, it's the GCC countries which with whom we are engaging, China FTA, Malaysia, Indonesia, Far East, Looking Africa, which was an initiative overall, seeing dividing Africa into 3 regions, which I feel seeing Africa as a single still is a big challenge. We have to cross-site it and see it in east, west, and north. So these trade diplomacies and engagements is one component where we are aggressively trying to reach up. Engagements with countries which we have not done before, or we have, if done, we have not gone into an agreement state with them. I'll give you a very small example of recently, like 4 or 5 countries we have initiated. With South Korea, Pakistan has not engaged for the last 12 years. With Iraq, we have not engaged for the last 22 years. With Azerbaijan, Pakistan did its first PTA. With Cambodia, recently I was in Cambodia with a market which is very much competitive in garments and all. Pakistan has never engaged with Cambodia with any platform. And similarly is the case with central few countries and all. So this is one big question, which is like why we have not really engaged with markets where we could have given our own product lines, our own industry, a leap to go and address and take an opportunity from these countries. So one thing is trying to reach out to new markets, not markets which have never been identified before, markets where we are already engaged in, how we can take a benefit from them, how we can support our whole business community. On the second part, when it comes to China FTA, when it comes to other PTAs we have, I think so there's a big room of the readdressing issues, resettlement certain things, which is not kind of benefiting our industry, but vice versa. So I think so for that we are addressing main key components. We have already engaged in as because China is the biggest importer in Pakistan, close to 13, 14 billion. So that's one key component we are very focused on. Our teams have taken initiative. We have seriously seen the GCC and the CEPA, which we are going to do with UAE, which again has raised a lot of concerns for our industry, that what kind of we should not be repeating the mistakes which we have done in other FTAs. So we have given time to these two engagements and try to make sure that we keep a secure way of negotiating and engaging. And the thirdly, which is very important, of how to take the business community with us along with the Prime Minister and other delegations and give them a kind of a platform where they can really see or capitalize on an opportunity. So for that purpose, I would like to kind of compliment the Prime Minister himself. You people have engaged with him very thoroughly on different platforms. That the B2B engagements, we are trying to give them a space of ownership and not just merely making them business visits by any person or business community representing, but very sectoral focus, identification of areas in the countries where we are going, what kind of interests they have with us. And for the last 6 months, we've been very successful in engaging with many of them, like Malaysia, Saudi Arabia itself, Russia has been one, Belarus has been one. At the same time, we have engaged with, as a single country, with Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan itself, and again focusing on with the Saudi Arabian part a lot, and similarly trying to focus, which we have not yet, the biggest market we have in West is US and European Union. We have engaged ourselves in certain areas where our overall engagements and non-solved issues we have with US, with USTR, but with the new government coming in place, Pakistan is going to be re-engaged again and try to capitalize the markets which already exist. In tariff lines, there has been a very serious concern. What the government basically did in the last budget, unfortunately, many of them were let down and which were not accepted by the Ministry of Commerce in the budget we had, on which we raised a lot of questions also. But this time, in the new budget, what the Ministry of Commerce is trying to do is we have already sensitized the Ministry of Finance that commerce has to be engaged at all levels because it's the concern which we get from the market is directly to us. All the chambers, associations, companies, and organizations, they come to us, and we are the platform, and we are the right people who listen to them more in our own way and keeping the overall economy of Pakistan, the growth of Pakistan. It's a long list of things which we like to address also. And one another key component which I've seen as a personal experience of my thing is revamping the whole and reforming the Commerce Ministry itself. A lot of steps that we have taken in terms of TDAP and DGTRO, EDF itself, IPO, and other sectors, which is very important too. If we are not reforming and strengthening our own organizations, That's the really basics of uplifting the overall trade diplomacy. And one key component, I think, so a good step which the caretaker took was how the new trade investment offices are representing Pakistan globally. There was a very good mechanism of hiring them through lumps and then identifying sectors and engaging them in different missions. What we did on top of that is to evaluate them and see how they're functioning for Pakistan. How are they engaging with the business community over there and trying to make that bridge gap closer by engaging the business community here in Pakistan. So we've created this portal where they are evaluated on the daily basis, what they're doing, who are they engaging with, what numbers, KPIs they have achieved and all. And now that we are in the second phase of hiring the trade officers again, which is already completed and I'm about to take the interviews, we have introduced 5 more components. So it's just not like sending your representative in a mission. So you need to identify that country and who's fit for that country. So each country has its own needs, how the people are, how the government is, how you need to really pursue your industry, what kind of a sector you have more in that country. So inshallah, these new offices are going to be taken keeping these 5, 6 benchmarks in front. And the only reason I am emphasizing on this thing is these are the people who represent us. And they'll be the people who will be representing the whole business community in trying to gain what they can from the other missions. At the same time, like I've said, the reform overall has to be more domestic also. You know, we talk about export surplus all the time, but if you don't have a good domestic trade mechanism, it's very difficult to really achieve and get that extra mile to be a trade surplus. And for that, we are reviving old policy, which was the domestic policy, which was there with the Ministry of Commerce, was kept in a cold storage reasons well known to people. But we are trying to revive that, engage with the provinces, engage with the industrial departments of provinces and federal authorities to really bring up the supply chain in a better form and enhanced form. With all these things, we have gained quite a good number of numbers in the agriculture side, which really went a little high, 3.5 billion the last year. And especially there was the rice sector where we saw the growth. But I very much believe that there's a lot of potential in the growth of agro-based products in Pakistan. And for that purpose, we had a good AG Expo, which happens every year. But this time we have introduced another expo, which is going to be held next month in Lahore, and that is going to be agri-tech. Technology has to really come in agriculture. So the value chain has to increase, the volume has to increase, the value addition has to increase through technology. And that's one key component which I feel is missing in Pakistan's overall industry. The growth has to come through technology. And for that, there has to be like skill development, industrial growth development, industrial technology development. And these kind of fairs do have to be of certain level where they can attract a lot of good investors to Pakistan. So by keeping these aspects in mind, like the 660 billion figure that we have, that we should achieve in another 4 years' time, in my point of view, if things are done very rightly, it's very much achievable. But at the same time, if we don't address these key challenges and issues of cost of production to energy, to taxation, and other ease of business in Pakistan, then I must say that it will be very difficult to even come closer to it. So by keeping all these things, this is what the Ministry of Commerce has really put forward to the federal government. And with the assistance, that we need all these aspects to be addressed also, plus keeping IT and services on one side. So this is an overall view that we feel if we engage in all these sectors, Pakistan can definitely achieve all these things. But at the same time, my core belief is very much that we need to give the industrial growth in Pakistan. If there's no industrial growth in Pakistan, it's going to be very difficult. So we need to give that space. But I'm sure you all are well aware how our recent negotiations have gone with IMF, which has restricted us to some corners, to some areas where we have not been able to work very freely in many sectors. But I'm sure with as passing day, Pakistan will definitely make its position a little stronger and will be in a better position of renegotiate on few things too.
Thank you. I think you addressed the first part of the question, that what you're doing, but what about the second part? What results has it yielded in a year? And have you maybe broken this target over the next few years? And also the part you keep saying that, okay, a lot of things are not in your hand, but then there are a lot of industrialists and business leaders sitting in this room. There's a lot not in our hands, but the companies keep growing at 25%, 30%. They're resilient. They work, against odds which are against them. So, they're not in charge of the energy rates. They're not in charge of the water coming to them. They're not in charge of everything, but they still manage to get the growth. So are there certain things that you can do kind of to get those other people on board with you and grow?
I guess, if you go a year back with Pakistan, like having overall inflation in double digits, again, the interest rates pretty high. Pakistan reserves to be at a position where the confidence is not very much there in the market, stock exchange performing very low, and all these aspects which were quite negative for the overall market, we still have shown a lot of growth, a growth which should have been from 31 billion to maybe 25 billion should have gone in year 24, 25. But we have gone above that. We are coming close to a $34 billion export, which is happening, inshallah, this year. So we do think, even with all these challenges and constraints that we have, there has been engagement by the government in addressing many of the issues which you're very much right might not have been addressed. But we are trying to give that confidence within the ministry, within the industry, of our full support in whatever way we can. And I'm really thankful, because end of the day, it's not the Commerce Ministry which has done this 32 to $33 billion export. It's basically the industry which has done it. And by keeping in mind our engagement with the industry has been in some way, so that we have tried our level best to keep engaged with them, try to give them this confidence of reinvest in Pakistan and keep that hope with us also. So all these factors, I'm sure, must have contributed, which has really resulted still a positive increase of 14% as compared to the last year.
Thank you. My next question is to Musadaq Saab. How do we ensure consistency in export policy and other policies in general across political transitions? The Charter of Economy has been something that Razak Saab, Yawar Ali Saab, Mohammad Ali Tabba, everyone has been discussing over the last decade or so. But because of one reason or the other, it's not been able to be implemented. What are your thoughts on this, and how can it be done? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll probably expand your question on my own. First of all, and sorry that I would be probably speaking unvarnished truth, which might not be liked. Can $60 billion of exports be achieved? No, there's no question. Let's be very realistic, not in the short term. Why? I think we have had some very wonderful sessions in the morning. Dr. Ishrat Saab very clearly outlined that our productivity in the region is the lowest. Our, human development is low. Dr. Saab pointed out that in real terms, and astonishingly, our wages have gone up in Pakistan. There's been a real growth in wages. So our energy system is, because of whatever reason, has a problem. It's the highest, probably not in the region, in the world. So when you have to compete, and World Bank report also repeatedly points out that our productivity is low. We have miserably failed, and it's not one government, to invest into human development. Our human HDI is 0.54, which is 164th out of 190 countries. With that type of, you see, workforce coming in short term, you cannot really compete. It's very simple. Our energy rates are higher. Obviously, Khurram is looking at me and I completely agree with him. We don't need any subsidy, and subsidies really don't help. They create more inefficiencies. Although what industry would like is that industry is not loaded with the subsidies for other consumers. If the lifeline consumer has to be, you see, protected, let the provincial governments, the federal governments do it out of their own budget. Why to, you see, kill the industry to do that? So that is probably unfair. But having said that, our cost of production, and the proof of the pudding is that in our 70 years history, there has been, and Aurangzeb Saab was also speaking this, and we have been talking about this a lot, and it has been documented by the World Bank in the last country report, that there has been no efficiency seeking FDI in Pakistan. Every FDI which has come in is market seeking. So why? Do they don't like our faces or what? It's not just terrorism. They can go into Cambodia, they can go into Vietnam. So we are not efficient because of very reasons to export. So coming back to your question, what we need to, and we can do it. So, but I think it has to be a long-term policy. We have to invest in improving those conditions, which will then make us efficient. It will increase our productivity. We have to correct the mess in the energy sector, so that our energy rates come down. Even the investment. Why would people invest into industry which is for export? I remember 30 years ago, the asset turnover ratio was about 2 to 1. So if you invest $100 million, your turnover could be $200 million. It has come down to 1 to 1 because of all the infrastructure which you have to build in, all the energy safeties you have to build in, everything. Even in Egypt today, it's 2 to 1. I was approached by SIFC that Ben Qasim, now an acre is available for $10,000 a year on a 30 years lease. Egypt is providing better, you see, industrial estates with $4,200 a year with 6 cents of electricity. So forget us, but a Chinese or somebody else, he will go to Egypt. He will go to even India, but not come to Pakistan. So I think we have to first correct these things, and if we correct these things, the potential is there. Specifically talking about the textile and apparel sector, I think we have to, I always insist on this, that we have to divide this. And in Pakistan, even raw cotton is usually put into the textile category. We have to divide it, the manufacturing into two parts, textiles and apparel, as the entire world does. Our textile sector is in serious trouble because of the taxation differences and because of the energy rates. It consumes more energy. I mean fabric and yarn. When I say textile, fabric and yarn, if you don't have the entire chain which is efficient, even the value-added sector suffers. On the apparel sector side, I think we do have. Textile side, I don't think we have a future for exports. We should develop it for local domestic consumption.
On the question again, consistency of policy, how can we ensure that? We're running out of time, sorry.
All right. So I think Razak Saab is sitting here, and in the previous government, we spent about 2 years to develop a very good textile policy. But it had no ownership later on by the finance teams, and so I think unless there is, as you very well mentioned, that there has to be a charter of economy where bare minimum things are agreed by all the stakeholders, all the political parties, and we don't touch those policies, and then the investor can have a long-term view of those policies. Our policies are not even, you see, with due respect, not worth the paper they are written on. They change every 3 months, so you can't trust the policy. So I think consistency in policy is important.
Jam Saab, do you have any comments on this? How can we do this? Because being on the political side, how can we ensure consistency? You know, when the transition happens, people just come, scrap everything, change it, and we as investors are the ones who are, left suffering.
Well, I would say that people don't scrap anything, they don't work on it. A policy is made, but nothing is done on a policy. I'll give you a very small example. The last government had made this policy where, through the policy, they had made this National Export Development Board. So the National Export Development Board, headed by the Prime Minister, Finance Minister, State Bank Governor, FBR, and the private sector, in 4 years, they only did like 2 board meetings. And that shows like the interest that we have in the sector where we want to promote it. 13 sectoral councils were made. I was surprised never a minister had sat and heard what the sectoral councils had to say, which was represented by all the private sector. So what we did, I sat on all the 17 councils separately, took what their suggestions were, whatever the previous suggestions were, and now we are trying to like take it to the right forum. See, the thing is basically consistency is definitely there. It's going to come in if we start doing something. If you're not doing anything, if we're not taking any initiative to the right platforms to be decided, yes, we do pick and choose. So this time we are not thinking of picking and up choosing. I can just show you a very small example of this sectoral program, and I think so it's a very good platform. In my this 8 months period of time, I have never been so educated where I was from the private sector when I sat with all these 17 sectoral councils, from logistics to gems, textile, food, meat, dairy, everything. And that's what I told the Prime Minister, that if you want to take Pakistan's exports high, then we need to really dissect this whole mechanism, bring it to the right forum, and get a decision from there. So now what currently happens, and what must have happened in the past, textile had an issue, a committee was formed, few ministers sat, made a report, all gone, no ownership. And similarly, even if there was an ownership, Commerce agreed, Finance did not, Finance agreed, Power did not, Power agreed, FBR did not. So now what we're trying to do is like take it to the platform for decision where the Prime Minister is going to be deciding it, where the most powerful board is going to be deciding it, where the private sector is going to be sitting in. And if it's not owned over there, then I don't think so Pakistan trade and export is going to go high. So this is the consistency which I, at least as Minister of Commerce, would like to take ownership. And inshallah, we have already done 2 board meetings. We are now taking the first sectoral agriculture proposal to the Prime Minister. And similarly, we'll be taking the other 3 also and get a decision from him and make it implemented also. But on the other side, I do agree, there are certain policies which are just made as a way forward. But there are certain decisions as policy agreements which we should honor and give a weightage to. But my last comment too is I do think there is a possibility of achieving these numbers. Like I said in my first talk, that if certain things are done, and if they are not done, definitely I agree, it might not even reach to $40 billion. But if all those things are done in time, Pakistan can even surpass it also.
Thank you. Rizwan, 2 quick questions to you. Which new international sectors and markets hold the most potential for Pakistani exports and why? And secondly, followed up by looking at IT exports and the expectations from them with all the internet issues in Pakistan, do you think this is really realistic, and what would your advice be to the people who make these decisions? Thank you.
For the second question, you want me to not come tomorrow, or? So I'll safely answer the first question. You see, if you were to ask me which is the market we can sort of really explore, that's China. And why China? I just had a conversation with 2 of the titans of the industry here in dairy and food industry. China imports about $12 billion worth of dairy. That's butter, milk powder, and other dairy-related stuff, right? Our freights to China historically have always been like very minimal. So China in my opinion, has a huge potential for Pakistan for us to export from here and tap the markets. Plus, there are a lot of Chinese in Pakistan. We can sort of understand from them what exactly they need and then make the products and export to them. So this is one. Another, another market would be EU, but that would be not of a product, but that would be for manpower. Just for everybody, by 2028, there will be a shortage of 750,000 truck drivers in the European Union and UK. Why can't we train truck drivers, people in Pakistan, teach them some basic language, bring in trucks from there, teach them how to drive them, make them pass the test, and send them to Europe and the UK. Just UK itself, 100,000 truck drivers are short. So these are things, some of them may be moonshots, but they're definitely worth exploring. And last, if you ask me, which country is really, really going to sort of grow very fast, even more, that's the US. With what's happening there, I think the economy of US 12 or 13 years ago was the same as Europe. Now it's 2.5 times. And with what's happening there, there's a lot of growth which will take place. And I think there's a lot of potential in the US. Having said all of this, there's one other point I'd like to add here for the Honorable Minister to consider, is you have to have boots on the ground, right? If I want to export anything from here to the US, I can't just wish that I export it and it'll happen. I have to go to the US, I have to have feet on the ground, and I have to have an office or people there. Whereas in our foreign missions, we are sending out these young chaps from slums and everything, but only 35% of our commercial counselors are from the commerce and trade background. The rest are from DMG, police, and the customs. So I really can't understand why someone from the police or the customs would, and I have verifiable data from the foreign. Yes, maybe DMG and customs, but there are commercial counselors sitting there from the DMG and the customs background, and I can dig up a police guy too, so along with that. But why not? Why replicate the whole thing? We have commercial counselors, that's their job. They should be from the Commerce Ministry. So that's something you may want to consider. Well, thank you.
Last question before we open it up for questions. Regional trade. Pakistan is one of the lowest countries in the world with its regional trade, since we're isolated from all our neighbors. With the opportunity which has presented itself in Bangladesh, which may be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, maybe we can take that from maybe 5% or 4% regional trade to 8 or 9, which would be a 100% increase. So what efforts are you making, and how are we going to go ahead with that? Thanks.
Yeah, I agree, Ziad, 100%. When I recently went to Cambodia, it was an eye-opener to me. I don't know how many of you have gone to Cambodia. You have not yourself. And you're a garment producer and exporter, and a country which is exporting close to $35 billion worth of garment is not visited by many of Pakistanis. So if you go to Cambodia, your eyes just open up that what kind of infrastructure and overall development they have done. But how? ASEAN countries interconnected to each other. They have their differences, but they're trading, they're meeting, they're visiting, their tourism is flourishing. So it's basically an interconnectivity. Somehow, we are blocked from all sides. So our west is blocked, our east is blocked. The only thing we have is the sea. And we are taking the best out of the sea by exporting. Again, what I would like to say is, if you don't really do a good connectivity and trade with your region, then it becomes very difficult in approaching. Though we have access to West and many other countries, but due to certain international reasons, Afghanistan and Iran factor has been one component where Pakistan has never been able to fully function in terms of its transit trades, in terms of its investment, in terms of its access to Central Asia. So I'm sure with passage of time, if these things improve in the global scenario, we will definitely take the best out of not only maybe from those countries, but access to the Central Asian Turkey and maybe Europe. But at the same times, we are always not keeping in mind the East African bloc, which I would like to really emphasize on. We market a country, all the countries which are already exporting. So the East blocks of African countries are buying markets. They are not very much into the industrial sectors. If we call about Ethiopia, we talk about Kenya, Somalia, Rwanda, Tanzania, Kenya itself. So Pakistan has a space of exporting its less expensive, less high-tech engineering equipments a lot. Our tractors have gone for the first time to Tanzania. Our manufacturing in the agriculture side has gone in. Our very basic motorbikes, EV motorbikes have gone in. So I think so the Pakistani industry should really work on East African blocks. So what we are trying to do now is bring a summit of East African bloc countries to Islamabad. We're trying to plan it and call all the heads of these countries so that they can explore our market. Bangladesh, we saw it. The SAARC committee had come into Islamabad. I had a very extensive meeting with their business delegation, and they were very much welcome that Pakistan should come in. Recently, the Ministry of Commerce delegation had gone to Bangladesh. We have been successful in taking a rice export from them, but not only in rice, they have shown interest in many products, even to an extent of construction material. So we are very much there. We're trying to revive our aviation with Bangladesh. I think so. This is an opportunity again. So Pakistan is definitely seeing it. Iraq is another opportunity in our region, which I think so many of Pakistani should working, and I'm really glad that we have one top 5 businessman in Pakistan who has really invested in Iraq. Tabba Sahab has done very marvelous for Pakistan. I was really proud to be over there when they said, you know, we have one company from Pakistan which has invested in Iraq, is Lucky Cement. So that's a good platform we have. And I should say, Pakistanis should see it. Why? A country which has a reserve close to $110 billion. A country which is having a growth which is going very fast in the last 3 years with infrastructure, real estate. They have no industrial base. They have no agriculture base. The only thing they export is dates or oil. So you have a very big margin, and we have done this GMC with Iraq after 22 years, which is going to open up a new window for many of our people also. So we try to reach out with Azerbaijan. We had our first PTA with Azerbaijan, and now we are taking a delegation. We sent a B2B single country exhibition over there. So now we are expecting a high delegation of their country's president coming over here and vice versa. With Belarus, we have done to some extent. So I think so we are trying to engage with all our neighborhood, except for one, where we have some issues. But at the same time, Pakistan is definitely seeing it. I'm a very firm believer, like sir, very rightly said, US is a very big opportunity for us. And I'm, in fact, we are having a meeting tomorrow with the US consulate over here. And we are trying to make a mechanism as the new government has come in, the new cabinet has come in. So maybe in another 2-3 months' time when they settle in, Pakistan needs to go over there, explore the markets. Now, because we are importing a lot of cotton from US, which is again something we are benefiting maybe their exporters. So we need to definitely see these opportunities, which we are, including Bangladesh and other parts of the world, and in our neighborhood also. And we are trying to expedite and build more on that. And I'll try to say one more thing lastly, which people talk about, is South Korea is another opportunity which the Pakistani business people should definitely see. A lot of relocation is happening, and so is South Korea doing. And there's a very good opportunity with textile and garment sector you can see in Pakistan.
Thank you very much. The floor is now open for questions. Can we have a mic with Yavar Ali Saab in the front row, please? Thank you. Does somebody have a mic?
I can, I think.
Chale.
So first of all, you mentioned the commercial officers going abroad. I think one of the important things would be to teach them the language that the country they're going in. That will help a lot. Secondly, Rizwan Saab, I think said about the truck drivers going. In the US, if truck driver makes about 150 drivers, we can ask them to go to US and train no new ones. I think you can hit the $60 billion mark just through remittances. That will come earlier with very little investment, and that should also be part of your strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to ask a question?
People lost.
That's all. Ji. Shabir, I think just we'll let Anis go ahead.
Yeah. So, as a businessman, as an industrialist, the last couple of decades that we've gone through, we see the ups and downs and the cycles which come in terms of policy and visibility. What is being done different this time for us to have this comfort that no matter who's governing the country, the policy for export and industrialization will be kept consistent and not affected by external or internal environment?
The first question, I think, so, which was put in about trade officers, and we should make them learn the language they're going in. I think so. There's going to take a lot of time for each trade officer to learn it. But one more thing which we are trying to do is, and I would like to come into the previous comment also. We don't have police officers, I think so, going to as trade officers. There's a distribution. There's a portion which is given to the private sector. Yes, we have customs. A bigger portion is there with commerce, and then we have DMG also. But at the same time, what I would like to say is, see, we need to not see from which profession of line they are. What we are trying to do is the only reason we said that they should be tested in lumps, not from lumps. So they are going to lumps to give a test. And if they come to an expectation of outcome which is very good, then we are doing another interview and try to assess that individual, whether they can do it and they cannot do it. Yes, there is a big debate that majority of those people should be from commerce. Because they need to really, they are with the ministry. But at the same time, we're trying to sensitize the other line departments also that this is how globally things are working. While they, as 18 grade, 19 grade officers go abroad and come back, definitely they do bring a little change. And that's what we are trying to do. The other step which we are trying to do is like the assistance they would require over there, they should be from that country and not from Pakistan. This is my point of view. Because if you take somebody from, as native from there, so you are not spending more, there'll be no language barrier, there'll be more converse with how that whole area is. And that's how we have started with China and with few more countries. And inshallah, in the new coming budget, we are trying to propose more human resource, but local human resource from that side. In terms of consistency, I very much believe it's very important, no matter what kind of a policy you have, it should be consistent. That's the key point. Whether it's a good policy, it's a bad policy, it has to be consistent. And that's how then companies and investors mold themselves around that policy. But the policy is more towards few things, I think so. The one is, on which we are very much focused on, is energy pricing. Pricing is one of the key factors, and tariff. So the tariff and power energy pricing are two things where the government really needs to really make sure that you cap them for a certain period of time so that the investor is confident in level. Interest rates are very much based upon inflation, that's how the country works in. For that factor, I think so for Pakistan, keeping inflation level down, there are a lot of aspects and works which need to be done in, because it's again with your domestic overall economy also. It has to do with your trade also. And somehow, like I've said, in these last 2-3 years have been very, not in a very balanced way for Pakistan in all terms, political, in terms of its economics and many other things. So that's why we have seen this turmoil, but I very much believe there has been a lot of efforts which are being put in reforms and these policies so that we streamline things. One point which had come in about human resource, I agree fully. Pakistan's strength is its youth, which is from the age of 14 to 30 years of age. Globally, not only truck drivers, nurses, nursing side has become such a big need globally from West to America to anywhere in the world you go. And Pakistan can really materialize on this thing if we have the right infrastructure of such nursing colleges and institutes. But there are hardly few in Pakistan. Al Khan University is one, and maybe a few more where we get high quality nursing to be exported abroad. Skilled labor, yes, a lot Ministry of Overseas Pakistan is doing a lot of deliberation in this. Pakistan needs to export is not only labor, but high skilled labor also. Like you go to anywhere in the world, like I say, I'll give you an example of South Korea. South Korea population in the next 10 years is going on a major decline. And every such country, especially in Europe also, and these countries in Japan and all, they are in a very big shortage of human resource, which they need to fulfill in IT and industry and many service industries. So I think so it's very good if the private sector should come in also. The reason we are focusing on these B2Bs sectoral wise is so that we identify such areas. We're just not doing B2Bs for the heck of B2Bs where 200 people from Pakistan should gather in, me 200 other business counterparts. What we are doing this time is making very focused sectoral distributions. Those sectoral distributions which are in demand in that country where we can fulfill it. And that's how we are going with each country. And alhamdulillah, I think so recently we did 6 MOUs with a very good renowned human resource company of Saudi Arabia, which is trying to take a lot of human resource from Pakistan in different categories. But similarly, we need to do the same with other countries also. Identified areas, which sectors we need to fulfill in, which skills are there, which are really much needed in different countries, which is going on. And this is the task which we have given now to our trade offices and to the overseas offices we have in each mission to identify each such areas, give the demand to us, and then over here with the private sector to make such facilities within Pakistan. They'll have a very good chance of really sending people abroad also.
Thank you. With that,
Answer Anis' question.
sure, but very quickly, we only have like 1 minute.
Yeah, okay. So Anis, to your question, from my experience, if you want to have consistency, have a leap of faith. Don't look at government policies, keep on investing.
Okay, can we please have a round of applause for the minister and the 2 panelists? Thank you.